In 1756, amid the ostentatious elite of Parisian society, a tall, distinctive figure in his mid 40s arrived at the court in the French capital. Dressed completely in black and adorned by stunning diamond rings, he carried himself with a scholarly disposition, reportedly being able to speak over a dozen languages fluently. He also played the piano and violin just as well. His knowledge of history, politics, philosophy, theology, and many other subjects was almost encyclopedic in nature. Gracious and displaying impeccable manners, he introduced himself as the Count of Saint Germain. Among his many extraordinary abilities, Saint Germain was also touted as an accomplished physician. He had reportedly cured a young woman of mushroom poisoning and had also cured Marshal of Belial, whom he arrived with, of a disease he contracted during a military campaign. Word soon spread of this astonishing man, with many now wishing to meet him. Among these was the Countess von Gary, who peculiarly had met a man of the same name in Venice some 40 years earlier. This acute familiarity led the Countess to take interest in Saint Germain's past. She had thought maybe she had met his father during her time in Venice. However, Count Saint Germain shook his head and explained that he was indeed the same man the Countess had met in Venice. The Countess, stunned with confusion, retorted that this was impossible. He had not aged a day since their encounter 40 years earlier. Saint Germain then recounted many details of their meeting in Venice, which only he and the Countess could have known. He then remarked with a smile, "I am very old." The Countess, now shocked, explained, "You must be the devil," to which Saint Germain, with a now more sinister inflection, whispered, "Please, no such names," before excusing himself from the room. Countess von Gary's recollection of Saint Germain was not unique, as several other older guests of the court noted recognizing a similar man decades earlier. Rumors of the Count using witchcraft began to circulate. Others believed he was the Wandering Jew, an anti-Semitic legend brought back to Europe by crusading knights. According to the tale, as Jesus carried his cross up the hill, one Jew, whom some named Cartaphilus, berated him, scolded him to hurry up. Jesus replied, "I go, but thou shalt wait for my return," before continuing up the hill. Cartaphilus laughed at him, but as the years passed, he watched those younger than him, first children, then grandchildren, die before him, and it slowly dawned upon him what Jesus had meant. Many of the elite in French society started to wonder, could the Count of Saint Germain be Cartaphilus? Was this the secret of his great knowledge? Whenever the Count was presented with these questions, he would neither confirm nor deny that he was, in fact, the Wandering Jew. Though he would speak often of Jesus and the events of the New Testament as if he knew the participants directly, he spoke movingly of Jesus and would even openly weep, particularly if pressed for more details. Despite his reactions, many found the Wandering Jew theory preposterous. Being the age of enlightenment, some thought that he may have discovered the elixir of life, or some other substance allowing him great longevity. Many had noted that the Count never sat at a table with other guests, but always retired to a room to dine alone. Some even claimed he did indeed have such an elixir, stating that he had told them so, and that he was older than any of them could ever imagine. One young noble noted in his memoirs a curious exchange he had with one of the Count's servants. The noble had skeptically told the servant, "Your master is a liar," to which the servant had replied, "I know that better than you, young sir. He tells everyone that he is 4,000 years old. But I have been in his service 100 years, and when I came, the Count told me he was 3,000 years old. Whether he had added 900 years by accident, or has lied to me, I cannot say." On another similar occurrence, when the Count was pressed on a matter of ancient history, he asked his valet to jog his memory, to which his servant replied, "Perhaps the Count forgets that I have been in his service only 500 years. This elixir many had speculated about seemed to be shared with his servants. Aside from his reputation of possessing seemingly unbounded knowledge, there have also been many accounts of Saint Germain's almost magical mastery of the physical world. For many at the French court, he was known for his alchemy. Reportedly, he once took a diamond from the king, valued at 6,000 francs, and removed its flaws, raising its value to over 10,000 francs. The Italian adventurer Giacomo Casanova has even claimed to have witnessed him transmuting silver into gold. Beyond alchemy, he had even invented a new method for dyeing silks and softening leather. These techniques were so effective that he had set up a factory in Paris, which proved to be a successful endeavor. So where did this incredible figure originate from? What was the Count's history? Uncovered documentation has shown before his arrival in Paris, he had been arrested in London in 1745 on suspicion of being a spy in the cause of the Jacobite rebellions. The English writer and Member of Parliament Horace Walpole recorded an account of him in a letter noting, "The other day they seized an old man, who goes by the name of Count of Saint Germain. He had been there these 2 years and will not tell whence. He sings, plays on the violin wonderfully, composes, is mad, and not very sensible. He is called an Italian, a Spaniard, a Pole, someone that married a great fortune in Mexico and ran away with her jewels to Constantinople, a priest, a fiddler, a vast nobleman. The Prince of Wales has had an unsatisfied curiosity about him." Historic documents place Saint Germain in Vienna during the 1750s, where he was known as a wealthy aristocrat. In 1760, the King of France sent him on a diplomatic mission to The Hague, where he took part in peace negotiations between England and the Netherlands. He was then reputed to have made a fortune in Holland before taking part in the Russo-Turkish War of 1768 to 1774, in which he rose to the rank of general in the Imperial Russian Army. In the decades thereafter, he vanished from recorded knowledge, until in 1784 an elderly man, apparently in his 70s, who suffered from rheumatism and bouts of depression, died in the small German town of Eckenförde in Schleswig-Holstein. This incredibly knowledgeable man with impeccable manners was declared to be, by Charles, the Prince of Hesse-Kassel, the Count of Saint Germain, one of the greatest sages who ever lived. But this would not be the end of the legend of Saint Germain. After the fall of the Bastille in 1789, Marie Antoinette received a letter from the Count, warning her that France would soon be in turmoil by a vast conspiracy. Madame Admire, a close friend of the Queen who had fled the revolution, claimed to have met Saint Germain. She had claimed he had just returned from Japan, where he had uncovered a worldwide plot to devastate France. By 1870, there were so many reports of alleged meetings with the Count of Saint Germain that Emperor Napoleon III of France had an investigation carried out. However, strangely, hundreds of documents from this investigation were destroyed when a fire roared through the Hôtel de Ville in 1871. Who exactly was this knowledgeable and influential man? History reports that he did indeed exist. He was a wealthy Austrian aristocrat, a Russian general, prominent attendant at the French court. He also appeared throughout over 150 years of European history and claimed to be thousands of years old. Could he then have been an extremely clever trickster who worked his way into high society? Certainly, there have been many wonderful, talented human beings throughout history with vast mental capacity. Perhaps he was one that exploited his gifts for greed and power, and in his wake leaving behind a legend of a man that would not die.